first step in generating wealth is to pay yourself first.
I know everybody knows.
Stay tuned.
Stay protected.
Stay focused.
Stay connected.
There's a lot of different types of HELOC products that are now on the market, some of them geared towards velocity banking, and that's really good news.
This is probably the largest asset you will ever have in your life.
Right.
Here's some direction and some instruction on how to leverage this vehicle so that you can help yourself, help your family, accomplish your goals. We're not educated that way.
We use a strategy to pay off our home in 4 years.
Validation of your retirement account says what you thought was a retirement account is no longer one.
When I tell you, you're going to be shocked to learn. If you didn't come from a wealthy family,
You can make sure a wealthy family comes from you. So it starts with pay yourself first today,
Yeah, starting today.
right now. Put your money in somewhere secure. It's about the ability to not lose. I will take base hits all day long versus winning and losing. Somewhere secure, compound your money, and then you leverage OPM, other people's money, to exponentially grow it. That's how you generate wealth.
So whether you're joining us to crush debt or build wealth, time is the most valuable asset.
and we're so grateful that you're spending your time here with us.
Keep going.
Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Tonight, we are talking about the third pillar in the family bank, or building a family bank. And really what we're talking about is designing a family bank. So that really is the difference between all the other pillars and this one that we're covering tonight. Most people, they don't fail to build wealth because they lack discipline.
Right.
They fail because their assets don't multiply.
Right. It's the machine. It's not the asset that's the problem. It's the machine that the asset is placed in. Is it in a vehicle that can allow your money to make money whether you're here or not?
Right.
That's the question.
And which assets are the best for building a family bank? This is not the typical build your portfolio, diversify your portfolio. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking specifically about designing for a family bank. This is for transferable wealth. This is for generational wealth. This is for something, a system, not an inheritance, right? Not something that you're passing on so that they can spend. It's a system that you can create, or that you will create. If you're here, that's exactly what you're doing, that you will create in order to pass on the system to the next generation to continue to feed and build and grow.
I think a shift in my thought process had to move from being focused on what today looks like, or even what tomorrow looks like. What does the next 500 years look like?
Yeah.
And that's not something that we have been conditioned to even recognize. I talk to so many people who go, I'm fine. My kids will be fine. Whatever happens after that happens. But when we're talking about a family bank, what we're talking about is a sustainable system such that, again, whether you're here, your kids are here, or whether your kids' kids are even here, you've got the Rockefeller type situation, right? You've got this machine that can go on for generations to come and build what true legacy actually looks like, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why there are 7 pillars to this. It's not, if it was easy, everybody would have one. And if it was common, then everyone would understand how to build one. They would have already done this 100 times over, right? Some of this is access to assets, right? Access to opportunities, but some of this is just access to information. And instead of having to go and search or read an entire book for that, we are giving you the shortcut. So you'll get that right here if you are following this series. If you haven't, if you're new here, we're the Stidhams, and our job is to help you get
Self-directed all day long.
Self-directed means to make confident, educated decisions from a place where you understand where your opportunities are. You can identify where your opportunities are and know how to pivot. So whether you have, this isn't a one size fits all. So it really starts with what is it that you have available to you today, and how can you take what you have and start building something today? That is what we do here. That is what our community has been doing. And hello, everyone. By the way, thank you so much for joining us here in the chat. We love to see it. Hey, Shay Shay. Haven't seen you in a while. We love to see you in the chat. So if you haven't subscribed, we've also, just a quick update, some housekeeping. We've also started a new channel. And on that channel are all of the edited versions, the condensed versions, all of the crosstalk and
bite-sized pieces.
That's right. All the bite-sized pieces that are shareable in shareable form, and we put that on a separate channel so that it doesn't get confused with the longer live streams. We just felt like it was better to do that. So if you if that hasn't crossed in your feed yet, then check in the comments or the description below, or ask us and we'll send you that link to that channel. We hope that this makes this easier so that you can share this with your family, share this with your friends, whoever it is that you're on your wealth building journey with, who's co-piloting with you, right? And get them on board.
So one thing, I want to make sure this doesn't also feel too overwhelming today, because we're talking about this machine, what does the next 500 years look like? But maybe in your family, you're the first one getting started.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
So I want to make sure this is also clear. This is also meant to be, what are those pieces of the puzzle that you put in place today so that the next 500 years can actually take place. So this is also about how you get started and when you get started, and what are those vehicles and tools you use as this process starts. And in addition to that, what started this conversation around the family bank wasn't really even about the future. It's about right now, like where we're headed right now. And that is, it is going to get increasingly more difficult for our young people to be able to launch. So how much more powerful would it be, or easier for them would it be, is if we created this foundation for them to be able to launch from. So a large piece of this family bank is about building that foundation where we may have to have, I can never say the word, but it's, I always want to say cohabitating families. It's the families living together, and I can never
multi-generational.
There it is, multi-generational. I can never get it out. Multi-generational living, meaning you may have a household that includes grandfather, grandmother, parents, and kids all living in the same household
or system.
Right. And again, we talked about family being that circle of trust. So it may not even be, may not even be related. You may have worked together, went to school together, or served together, and you guys are commingling your funds and your relationships together to be able to create a platform to be able to launch from. So it's about that as well, meaning it's not just about what 500 years looks like. It's about building that platform for today. So I want to make sure that just doesn't get lost in everything that we're talking about as well.
Yeah, that's true. And that can be like a whole nother stream, because I like to say that friends are the family we get to pick out for ourselves. Right. Not everybody has a family who would be on board for this, and we totally understand and empathize with those who have that. And that's your reality. We understand it. If that is you, what we're talking about still applies to you. I mean, truly, this is not just about survival, although survival is the baseline for everything that we're talking about, especially this evening. What we're really discussing is thriving and being able to have options. If we don't plan for that, if you fail to plan, you've planned to fail, right? If we don't plan for that now, which we have the time to do, we can make different decisions to do, and all we need is information. So on that note, are you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Let's see here. I knew I did this. No, I did it already. No, I didn't. Okay. Well, here we go. Yeah, I got to find it. I thought I already did this. Maybe I have to put it over here. No? Ah, dang it. Okay. Well, gosh, I hate that.
I'll make it, I promise.
Yeah, he's got to rush. He's got to raise the board. Okay, here we go.
I'm faster than I look.
All right, here we go. So if you are new to this series, this is the third pillar of the family bank. Tonight, we're talking about building your system, designing your family bank, and I think you're going to love it. Let's jump in.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The goal should be, where can I achieve exponential growth? Exponential growth.
Let's just get into it. Let's just get into it.
See, I made it, didn't I? All right. Yeah. So we're jumping into I'll call it the third pillar of the 7 pillars that we were discussing as it relates to a family bank. And specifically, it's about asset growth. But where did we start? We started with cash flow. It's understanding, hey, once bills and expenses are paid, what's left over at the end of the month, because it's that cash flow that I'm going to actually be able to put to work to be able to generate wealth at some point. And then we talked about leverage. And once you see leverage, you can't unsee it. Once you identify where leverage is located, is it your home? Is it your time? Is it your age? Is it your health? Once you identify where leverage is located, it's taking that cash flow, understanding where your leverage is located, combining the two, but then where do you put it? Like, what do you do with it? And that's what today is about. Today is about identifying or putting that leverage and that cash flow together to build or generate that asset. So it's about growing the asset, because if your money isn't working for you, it's just dying. If your money is just sitting, it's just collecting dust. And so ultimately, that's kind of where we wanted to start. And that is, as much as we would like to, you honestly cannot save your way to wealth. And so if your assets aren't multiplying, what are they actually doing? If your assets aren't focused on building a family bank, what are they actually doing? If your assets aren't focused on generating or building a family bank, what we're talking about is just a piggy bank that is your money sitting there wasting away. And so the idea behind today is making sure we're putting our money in a position to where it can work for us. And leverage may not be enough. Just because grandma left you that house, and just because there's no longer a mortgage on that home, is that home sufficient enough to be able to sustain generations? Once grandma's no longer in that home, what do we end up doing with that home? Is it an income producing asset? Is it in a position to become or produce income over time? And the key piece here is, in order for a family bank to function, growth is essential. We have to be able to put our cash flow, our leverage, our assets in a position so they can go recruit more assets, so they can recruit more employees, so they can help their money help the money that you've already made make more money, in essence. And so again, we've just kind of highlight the 7 pillars real quick. What we're talking about, well, we started with cash flow, and then we moved over to leverage. Today, we're talking about asset growth. And then next week, we'll focus on protection. And we're actually going to group these two together. And then we're going to end it or end the series with financial education. And are we all in the same boat together? Financial education and unity and vision. And so we taught you, we kind of educated around cash flow before, and that was identifying where your additional dollars are located, and then putting those dollars to work, and then being strategic about it. Understanding how your time, your income, or your health can be leveraged and used to be able to produce more. And now we're focused on that asset growth, putting those dollars in the right place to go and generate more income over time. And it's not hard to do. But the question is, based off what you have today, based off what we've already talked through, based off the assets you already have available, are they compounding? What are they doing for you? Are they collecting dust? And I guess in essence, what would happen to those assets if you were no longer here? Meaning, if you've got certain vehicles in place so that your family's taken care of if something were to happen, are those assets continuing to grow, continuing to compound, or is it just a lump sum? What is it they're actually inheriting? And will what they're inheriting be able to beat or overcome inflation? And that's important. And when I think of inflation, it always goes back to this client that I have who, when I met her, again, this is wild to me, but when I met her, she had $180,000 sitting under her bed. And it was mainly because she was concerned with what banks will or won't be able to do over time. And I don't know how long that $180,000 was sitting there, but what I was trying to get her to understand is that money is actually, you're losing money with those dollars sitting under your bed. Why? Because it's being eaten by inflation. What $180,000 would buy today is far different than what $180,000 would have bought 10 years ago. And 10 years from now, it's going to be a lot less. So understanding whether or not the assets in question or the vehicles that you have to be able to generate and build wealth, are they in a position to be able to beat inflation? And ultimately, what's being inherited? Are they inheriting things? Are they inheriting dollars? Or are they inheriting a system? A system that will allow you to flourish, allow your family to flourish ongoing from now to inception. I mean, from inception to the future for generations to come. Will your family inherit a system that will allow your money to make its own money over time? And in truth, this is very
This is less about investing and more about creating a true machine that can work and function together over time. And so the question that you have to ask yourself is, what is that machine today? What does it look like today? Where are the opportunities to be able to improve upon that system? Because it's those improvements that, again, if you start now, if you start today, will put things in place so that when you need them, when you need it the most, the system is in a position to function for you. And so we kind of wanted to start this off with compounding. And we talk a lot about compound interest and how to generate compound interest on this channel. So this shouldn't be new. But I wanted to bring back a concept that we've talked about before, which is a fairly consistent concept that everyone brings up, and that is the doubling of a penny. Let me ask, what would you prefer? $1 million today, or would you prefer having a penny that doubled every day for the next 30 days? Again, $1 million right now, compared to a penny that doubles for the next 30 days. Which would you prefer? Which would you want? And I know the logic. Most who don't understand, who's never seen this before, will say, hey, of course I'll take this $1 million a day because I'll put that $1 million to work. Not understanding the power of compounding, the power of your money making money, and then money generating more money over time. So what would it look like if you were to take a penny and get it compounding for the next 30 days? And again, this is 1 cent. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there is 1 cent for the next 30 days. Obviously starting with a penny, and then on the second day, it goes from a penny to 2. What's interesting about this doubling per day for the next 30 days, you're halfway through the month and that penny has become 163 bucks. It's kind of hard to, I'll call it, if I were to bring my kids in here and I were to ask them this question of whether they would prefer $1 million today or a penny that doubles every day for the next 30 days, and I share with them by day 15, they'd have a total of $163. I think it would be obvious that the choosing of the $1 million immediately would make a lot more sense.
Immediately.
Like hands down. And so how long does it take for that penny to just simply become $100,000? We're talking about roughly 25 days before your penny doubling every day. It would take 25 days before you at least hit $100,000. Again, why would I choose anything other than that $1 million? But something funny tends to happen as it relates to compound interest when you hit your first 100,000. When you hit your first 100,000, things start to exponentially take off. Again, it starts off slow, but as it starts to take once you hit that first $100,000, it exponentially takes off. And that's what happens as it relates to a penny doubling every day for the next 30 days. By day 26, that 167,000 has become 335. And in 30 days, that penny would have compounded and become somewhere around $5.3 million. Again, you took that $1 million, for those of you who would have taken that $1 million on day 1, by day 30, the total amount you would have accumulated would be about $5.3 million. And again, you play this out a few more days, by day 35, we're talking about I guess you can't see it. We're talking about 171, is that billion? Yeah. $171 billion between day 30 to day 35. I'm sorry, 171 million. I was wondering why that was wrong. Between day 30 to day 35, we're talking about 171 million would have been accumulated just by adding an additional 35 days. My point is, when you allow your money to compound, when you give your money the right amount of time, some special things happen as it relates to your money being placed in a position to make its own. So if we're talking about compounding, what is that most important factor? That most important factor is time. So whether we're talking about $1 compounding every day for the next 30 days or an investment that you have, what we're talking about is compound interest. What we're talking about is your money making money. And let's be clear, Einstein didn't say compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. What he said was the effect of compounding, the effect of your money making money, the effect of anything compounding over time is the 8th wonder of the world. So the key is putting your money in a position so that it can make its own money. And the mathematical equation around what that compounding looks like always sits at the rule of 72. It's the rule of 72 which helps you determine what that looks like. And it kind of states it here, but I wanted to also spell it or draw it out. 72 divided by whatever that interest rate is you have. I don't care what the investment might be. It could be a high yield savings account. It could be your basic savings account at Bank of America or Chase or wherever it might be. That 0.1%. 72 divided by that 0.1% tells you how much time it takes for your money to double. How many years it takes for your money to double just one time. And it's that compound interest that allows you to understand, hey, is this vehicle the right vehicle, the correct vehicle that I should be placing my money in order to build and generate wealth over time? So when we're talking about the rule of 72, the biggest factor, the most important factor as it relates to the rule of 72 is time. What you're looking at is a measure of what would it look like to invest $5,000? Well, when you start to invest that $5,000 is important. If you started at age 30, investing $5,000, and again, this kind of working backwards as it relates to the rule of 72, if you allow that $5,000 to double every 5 years, meaning your compound cycles, the number of years it takes for your money to double is 5 years. So we're actually doing the rule of 72 backwards, meaning here, I'll show you. So if 72 is the time, what we're looking for is what is that percent that is actually being created? Well, if that $5,000 is doubling to 10 every 5 years, then what that equates to is about, I think it's about 14.4% is the rate at which it's compounding. So my point is, whether we're looking at the number of years it takes for your money to compound or the percent or the interest rate that you're compounding with, it's all based off the rule of 72. How you get there is really kind of up to you. So as it relates to this example here, what we're saying is if you allowed $5,000 to start compounding at the age of 30, it would take you till age 75 to amass about $2.56 million, which is awesome. But if you just simply waited 12 years to start compounding that same amount, what did I say, 12? Thank you, dear. If you just simply allow, because you know how it works. I'm 30. I just got that raise. I got time on my hands.
Yep.
I've got a brother this way. Because this is the exact conversation I had this weekend. I've got time on my hands. So you know what? I would much rather pay off my home. I would much rather pay off that vehicle I just purchased. And so I'll get there because I've got time on my hands. So instead of me allowing that $5,000 to start compounding today, I'm going to wait till I pay off my home. It might take me a while to pay it off. It might take me 20 years, but at least my home is paid off, and then I'll start that compounding. Well, allowing that 20 years of time to be lost, what's the impact on the amount that would have been accumulated? Well, 2.6 million compared to, what is that, 160K? So in essence, you lost somewhere around 2.4 million because you decided to wait to get your money compounding. So for those of you who might be 50, what does this mean for you? What it means is we are running out of compound cycles. What it means is time is not on your side. So the best thing that you can do is get money compounding as quickly as possible. And so if you're 50 years old in this situation, maybe you don't want to start with $5,000. Maybe you want to start with something closer to that 80 or 160 and get that compounding. But the biggest factor in this process, in this equation, as it relates to your money working for you, is time. So the best thing that you can do is start now. When's that best time to plant a tree, sweetheart?
20 years ago.
And so if you didn't do it 20 years ago, the other best time to plant that tree is today, right now. What are those vehicles you have? What are those vehicles you have today building compound interest? Now, the question is, are they the right vehicles? Are those vehicles secure? So there's other variables that we'll dig into, but it first starts with getting started as quickly as possible. Why? Because the largest asset we have at the moment is time. Our greatest asset is time. And again, just to, go ahead, sweetheart.
I was just going to point out, and knowing how many compound cycles you have left or available to you.
Right. And if we were to use this category, matter of fact, I can show you here. If we were to use this visual, as it relates to compound cycles. So at age 0, if we use, let me move that over. At age 0, if we're saying it, every 5 years is a compound cycle, and again, that's on average. Compound cycles can be 10 years, 8 years, 7 years, but on average, if a compound cycle is every 5 years, then what that says is based off age 0 or based off age 1, you have approximately 15 compound cycles ahead of you. So the longer you wait, the less compound cycles you have. So at age 30, we're saying you have approximately 11 compound cycles to be able to generate and build wealth. And maybe I've got a client who has made it very clear to me that she plans on living till age 150. So I'm going to say she's an anomaly. Most of us only have a few compound cycles, maybe 15. For those of you who plan on living to 150, you've got more. But my point is, based off the number of compound cycles we have a select number of time to be able to get our money working for us. And so if you're 30, that's about 11. If you're 50, how many compound cycles do you have left? Well, at age 50, that's approximately 7 compound cycles left. So what are you doing with this time that you have available to be able to get money compounding for you? Because as I mentioned, our largest asset, our greatest asset is time. And again, this is just me restating what I've already stated. Getting started at age 25 and allowing just simply $300 a month to start compounding for you at an 8% return. We're not talking about something, I'll call it outrageous or astronomical. 8% is, I'll call it pretty modest. The S&P 500's return is somewhere around that 8% mark over the lifetime of the S&P 500. So if you were able to get $300 compounding at age 25, what could that happen? What could that turn into? Well, at 8%, that could give you a nest egg of sitting around somewhere close to $1 million or $1 million a little bit over. But if you just start 10 years later, again, I want to pay off that car. I want to pay off those student loans first. I want to live my life. YOLO. I want to take those trips. I want to do those things that we all want to do when we graduate college versus getting money compounding. Well, just starting 10 years later, putting away that same dollar amount at that same interest rate till age 65 only accumulates somewhere around $420,000. So which is better, $1 million versus 420K that is. And then what if you just started 10 years later than that? Again, using the same dollar amount, same interest rate from age 45 to 65, allowing that money to compound 20 years. We're talking maybe 250,000. So my point is this: time is the most important factor as it relates to building and generating compound interest. Compound interest is how your machine is going to sustain itself. The money making money inside of your machine will determine whether or not your machine will outlive you or outlive the generations that's coming after you. So time is that most important factor, which means starting today is the best thing that you can do to compensate for the time that we all have left.
I just want to jump in here because we're talking about the family bank and we're not just talking about you and your time.
Right.
This is where it's really important to pay attention to who else has time. This is where you get to leverage someone else's time, right? So you may only have 3 compound cycles left. You may have 5 or 4 or 7 or
Right.
whatever it is. But who in your family has 15, 10, 12, right?
So
this is the power.
Yeah, let's be specific. What she's referencing is insurable interest. If we're talking about some type of properly designed cash value life insurance policy, I meet with clients all day long that say, maybe I'm too old. Maybe my health condition won't allow. Well, the question is, do you have insurable interest over others? Are there others in your household that you can insure and drive the same dollar amount through and leverage their age, their health, those pieces of their puzzle that allows them to be a leverageable asset to be able to produce the same results? So you're right. It's so much less about you. It's more about, again, we're talking a family bank.
Right. But for some families, they weren't designing and building a bank.
Right.
They already had one established because they've been doing this for generations upon generations. A new member into the family wasn't just a new member of the family, right? This was instantly another gear in the machine. And I think this is also why it becomes very selective I don't know what the camera's doing here. It becomes very selective for the members of this family or the heads of this family, right? To decide like who's going to be in the bank, who gets access, who gets keys to be inside of this bank. And now it starts the selection or selective process has different variables, different criteria, right? When you're thinking about it this way, whose time can be leveraged inside of this machine and who's going to invest that time into this machine, because it matters. If you've been doing this for 100 years, your family's been doing this for 100 years, and anything that could threaten this, because somebody was just like you, the first one in their family to establish this. Somebody was just like you, the first one to learn what assets would have longevity for multi-generational wealth. And they want to be able to protect it, which, spoiler alert, that's the fourth pillar.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, here you go.
So why all of the emphasis around compound interest and making sure your money's in a position to make its own money and how your assets are being leveraged? Well, it's pretty simple. 78% of the people watching this live right now have less than $1,000 saved. 78% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved. So if we're talking about creating a foundation so that the generations after us have a place to be able to stand on, to be able to propel themselves into a better position, when and where do we start? And in addition, those same Americans who have less than $1,000 saved are sitting on assets that they have no idea how to leverage. So it's understanding how grandma's home, who hasn't had a mortgage on it since '82, how that home can be put in a different position to maybe start I'll call it, added as inputs into a machine that can sustain far beyond whether grandma's here or not. So it's being able to identify where the assets are located and how they can be leveraged and used to be able to generate and build wealth. Not just as an inheritance of a thing, but inheritance of a system, inheritance of a machine, inheritance of a process that allows money to make its own money. And if we as the generations after or under work together, we can then feed this machine and add to this machine so that it can become a bit more of a sustainable vehicle. That's the objective. And so as we focus on identifying what that machine might be, we also have to be conscious of some factors that could literally destroy that machine. And that is inflation, taxes, and structure. Let's talk about the structure first, because I speak with a lot of clients who have these vehicles that they've picked up from, let me be specific, have these properly designed, and I'm using air quotes, properly designed cash value life insurance policies that, as they were told, is put in place and structured so that it can produce income over time. Well, if you don't understand the structure that went into those vehicles, you could be setting yourself up or be placed in a position where what you thought you had as a vehicle that is designed to produce income over time is poorly designed, poorly structured, and won't even break even for the next 15 to 20 years. So understanding what that structure looks like is very important. And as it relates to inflation, and again, this is one of those subjects that we love to discuss on this channel. So the question I have for you is, are your assets positioned to multiply? And if they are, does that growth of that asset allow you to overcome or counter what inflation may look like over time? Or is this asset that you have in place something that can outperform and outpace what that tax rate might be? And so, where am I? Oh, I'm down here. And so as it relates to inflation, even if your income is growing at a consistent rate, is that income enough to be able to outpace and outperform what inflation may or may not look like? Meaning, if you have an income of $100,000 today, and you're spending that $100,000 based off what it looks like, as the years progress, that same $100,000 income has less buying power. And that buying power lessens as we move through time, to the point where over a 20-year span, what $100,000 look and could spend like could be more like 50% of that. And so understanding whether or not this vehicle that you have that's producing this income that you have today, if God forbid you were not in a position to be able to continue that income, does the machine that is comprised of that income, meaning your retirement, your Social Security, your income producing assets, will all of those be put in a position to where it can overcome whatever that inflation rate would be? Or are you placing yourself in a position where you may end up having to go back to work? And that's the idea around making sure that as you are putting the right pieces in place to be able to counter or compensate for inflation, you're making sure that you can also, you have an asset that is building for you to be able to overcome what that looks like.
Right, because you can't reduce your expenses enough if you don't have enough income to outpace inflation and to make up the difference.
That's it. And so just to kind of reiterate, the average income for retirees for 2025 is somewhere around $65,000 a year. And we'll break down what that's comprised of. But that's $65,000 a year. Just 10 years later, the buying power or in order to have the same buying power of that $65,000 in 2025, you would need $87,000. So if the assets you have producing this $65,000 in 2025 isn't compounding, isn't building such that in 10 years, that same 65,000 looks more like 87. So you continue the same simply continue the same lifestyle, the same buying power that you had in 2025, we've got a problem. And it's this relationship is what's causing people to end up back in the workforce. It's because this factor wasn't compensated for when we were building for or identifying those vehicles that would help us through retirement.
Yeah, because most people have already downsized at $65,000 a year.
Right.
They've already reduced their expenses as far as they can go.
Right.
Then now you move 10 years, they probably need a new car by then because cars just don't last, right?
Or eggs are $20 a dozen or whatever the nonsense might be, right?
Buying eggs on the streets, right? And so now they're selling eggs, right? Because trying to make up the difference. That's right. But the point is that they've already downsized. Most people, when they prepare for retirement, they are not trying, they don't have it in their mind. It's not realistic for them to try to uphold the same lifestyle. So they've already prepared for that in some way, shape, or form. So this is, I hope, here, I'll come back on. Mm-hmm. I hope everybody pays attention to this chart right here, because this has to be the most alarming thing that you can see. It is not pay off your home. It is not get out of debt. It is so much more than that, and you will need so much more than that. And so what we hope is that this will just create an awareness of what assets do I have that the income from those assets not only will be protected from taxes, and whatever the tax rate will be, right? Whatever the additional costs or tariffs or whatever is going to be added on, nothing's getting cheaper is the point. And can you cover that with the assets that you currently have? Because if you can't tell, if it wasn't very, very clear before, we hope that just made it extremely clear as to why you need growing assets and you need continual passive income.
And this chart, I think, also speaks to why the multi-generational living is a thing. Because if grandma and grandpa are used to living off $65,000 a year, but now all of a sudden they need 87, and they didn't, I'll call it, they didn't plan for the assets that was generating that retirement income to be in a position to compound and grow. This is where, or maybe here, is where they end up moving back in with the kids, because things are more expensive. And so we now have to work closer together so that we can just simply survive. But if we take this information now and put it into play, how about we combine our resources here, even though it's not necessary, and put our resources in a position so that it's in a machine that can produce more income for us and build compound interest for us over time, such that when we reach this point, we're already prepared. We've already done the necessary actions to be able to put the system in play. And what does that breakdown look like? What is the breakdown of, in most cases, the average retirement income of around $65,000? What does that average breakdown look like? Well, about 36% of it is retirement income, 401ks, 403bs, 401a, a SEP IRA, Roth IRA. In most cases, about 36% is our retirement accounts and pension plans. About 30% is Social Security. And whether we're talking about the CPS and Social Security and IRS data, or we're just talking about CPS alone, it's still right around that same area, 30 to 35%. And then a lot of our retirees who are at age 65 are still in the workforce, which is why the RMDs keep getting pushed out, because the system that designed this knows 65 may be too early. 65 may not allow you to be able to continue to live your lifestyle, so you may need to continue working. So that's why RMDs are being pushed out. So this is widely known information, but we aren't educated, I'll call it, while going through this process to know what are the actions we need to take to improve. But my point is this: the breakdown is the same regardless of who you're looking at. But what's the tax implication on these different asset classes? Meaning whether it's a rental property or crypto or some other land or some other asset, or your earnings or retirement accounts or Social Security. The issue with all of that is it's all taxable. If you're not careful, your entire retirement base of $65,000, which is the average, all of it is taxable. So you're not even living off $65,000. So to your point, sweetheart, you've already downsized. But when you throw the tax implication in that as well, that 65,000 isn't even 65. It's more like 50.
Right.
And again, this is what's forcing people to remain in the workforce or merge their resources with their kids and create and generate that multi-generational living. So again, we know this. So now that we know this, what are the actions that we take? Now that we know this, what are the things that we can do different? And so as we kind of talk about, oh, I got the answer here already. As we kind of talk about that asset selection, understanding it again, it's less about what specifically you're putting your money in, and it's more about the structure of that asset. The structure of that vehicle that you're placing your dollars in, and is it structured properly to be able to provide you with the necessary structure needed to produce and generate growth. So that asset selection needs to be focused on security. Does it have the ability to compound? And is it passive? What I mean, is it producing income that requires no effort from you? Is it leverageable? Why is that important? Why is leverageable important? Because I talk about leverage a lot. Why is leverage important? Well, here's the beauty around, I'll call it the impact on taxes and your income. Well, when you're using leverage dollars are not taxable, which is why most of your millionaires, the money they spend isn't the money they make. The money that they make ends up making more money. That money ends up buying assets. And what ends up happening is they leverage that asset and spend that part. So is the asset you're putting into play leverageable determines whether or not you can spend and use tax-free dollars to be able to continue to live. And then is it transferable? And how easy is it to transfer? Meaning, are your beneficiaries inheriting, again, a thing, or are they inheriting a process, inheriting a tool, a vehicle, a machine that, again, already has these pieces of the puzzle in place so that all they have to do is maintain the structure of that machine in order for it to continue producing income. And there was a piece missing. And again, I've already given the answer to the test. The piece missing in this structure is also, is it tax advantaged? Because maybe it's not a properly designed cash value life insurance policy. Okay, every asset doesn't have to be a SKIA, but is that asset you have in play tax advantaged? Is the rental property that you have placed inside of a Roth IRA or a Roth 401k? And so the rent being produced from that asset is producing tax-free growth. So is it tax advantage, I think, is the piece. And so again, when we talk about asset selection, these are those pieces of the puzzle that we just want to make sure that they are at play or in play to be able to produce the income that we need. And see if I missed anything. Tax advantage, inflation proof, and are we not inflation proof? Are we able to outperform, outproduce whatever the inflation rate might be? So it's not that inflation doesn't impact the asset that you have at play. The question is the growth happening with this process able to outpace or outperform inflation? That's the key. And again, I go back to leverageable. Is the income being produced from that asset something that you can actually borrow against, be used as collateral, and income be distributed based off the leverage of that vehicle? Again, that's the powerful piece. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, Nathan just brought up a point, and I don't know if this is the right time to bring it up, but
Okay, I'm listening.
it's pretty significant. Gosh, here, let me make it bigger so everybody else can see it.
I can't read.
Yeah. He said, just think how powerful what Donnell just said. Is your rental inside your Roth producing tax advantage income? And this is so significant because the majority of people who think about a Roth IRA, right?
Right.
And they're thinking about investing with their Roth IRA for tax advantage purposes. This is why this conversation is so significant. Because you hear Roth IRA and then you hear real estate and then you hear tax-free and then you put it all together and you go, yes, this is absolutely it. But I think about baking and chemistry. And sometimes when you don't know one thing, that when you mix this with that in this order, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden it produces a completely different result, and all of it, your cake didn't rise, or it didn't turn out how it was supposed to turn out, and you go, what happened? I followed the recipe, right? I put all of the ingredients in, but you didn't know this one thing would happen, and it ruined everything. That is a Roth IRA. If I could explain it any better. It is that right there. The amount of information that is going out around, especially in finfluencing,
Right.
especially with viral or trending social media content, and tons of people talking about go grab a Roth IRA, go do that unless you're going to invest in businesses or real estate. Don't do it. There are different ways to do it. There are different ways to do it under Roth conditions. But it's really important that we talk about that. Do you want to unpack that?
Sure. So, because what she's saying, and this is so important. I'll give a quick example. Which is better? And and Nathan, you join in too. Which is better? A Roth IRA that's purchasing a property inside of the Roth IRA. And I'll give you a quick example. You've got a $100,000 Roth IRA, you're buying a property or you're buying a property that costs $200,000. So you got $100,000 in your Roth IRA, you're buying a property that costs $200,000. Well, if you've only got $100,000, you need leverage. You need another $100,000 to help you buy this property. So you go to a bank, you take your Roth IRA to a bank, you get what's called a non-recourse loan, and you now have a $100,000 non-recourse loan from that bank, and you buy that property. So your $100,000 borrowed $100,000 from a bank, you take that $200,000, you bought the property. And let's not even talk about the tax-free income generated by the rent. Let's just say you bought the property for $200,000 and then you sold it for $300,000. You just made $100,000 Roth profit.
Which most people would say is what?
Most people would say that is the best possible investment you could possibly do.
Because it'd be tax-free because it was Roth.
You just created $100,000 of tax-free profit. But little did you know, the government was hoping that you would buy this property inside of your Roth IRA and generate this Roth profit. Because what the government is going to do, what the IRS is going to come behind you and do, is charge you 35 to 37% on 50% of your profit. And wait a minute. Let's erase the whiteboard and start over. I got a Roth IRA with $100,000 in it. I borrowed $100,000 from a bank. That's a total of $200,000. I take that $200,000, bought a $200,000 property, sold that $200,000 and made $100,000 Roth profit. And then you're telling me the bank comes behind and taxes 50% of my $100,000, which would be 50 grand at 37 to 35%.
Yeah,
exactly what I'm saying.
wait, hold on. Why? Because wait, Roth is tax free.
Roth is tax free. I just made tax free profit.
You tax the seed and then you get the harvest for free. So how the heck did that happen?
Every state. I've already paid taxes on this money. What do you mean I owe taxes again?
Exactly. And everybody on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube said the Roth was the way to go. I already paid my freaking taxes.
Exactly. Well, this little thing called UBIT, unrelated business income tax, sneaks up behind you and says, thank you. I'll take 50%, or I'll tax 50% of your profit at 35 to 37%. And there's nothing that you can do about it. No one told me about UBIT. Well, who benefits from you not knowing about UBIT?
And who wants to talk about UBIT? Because the majority of people who are talking about Roth IRAs probably don't even know UBIT exists.
Oh, that's not fair. But I understand
No,
where
that's
you're
fair.
coming from. I understand where you're coming.
Because there's a responsibility to tell people about UBIT.
Yes, there is a fiduciary responsibility to tell people about not just the vehicles that you should be investing your money in, but all of the aspects of those vehicles that can get you in trouble. So no, you're spot on.
And by the way, if you want to know the history of UBIT, we have covered that here on our channel, and we have it in an edited form, so you don't have to watch a 2-hour live stream just to get the history of UBIT. We did that for you. I know. I don't know if it played. All right.
And so
back to you.
So, but real quick though, because you can stay here for this.
Okay.
So real quick though. So again, we just said, got a Roth IRA with 100,000. I borrowed 100. I sold that property that I bought for 200. I made $100,000 profit, and I just learned I get taxed on 50% of my profit at 35 to 37%. How could I have done better? How could I have beat that? Well, 401ks are not impacted by UBIT when you purchase properties and you purchase those properties inside of a 401k. UBIT does not exist.
Wait, but I want it to be Roth.
Aha. So I am literally stating a traditional 401k using this exact same example, you would not be impacted by that 35 to 37% tax. So you could almost make more by taking the capital gains on that growth or the standard income on that growth in taking the distributions from the 401k and still not be hurt as bad as UBIT would impact you. But you're right. If you have a Roth 401k.
A what?
A Roth 401k. And this is where most people don't realize Roth 401ks are even a thing. Most people don't realize Roth is a condition of $1. So yes, your 401k can also be Roth. So you do this exact same example inside of a Roth 401k, no UBIT. So now that's like getting a 35 to 37% increase in your profits by just having a 401k.
Okay, real quick, side quest.
Yes.
Okay, imagine you are passing on.
Rabbit hole hunter. So let's jump down.
Imagine you have passed on these assets, or someone has passed on these assets to you, and they're like, "Listen, I got you. I invested all of these properties, Roth." Okay, they're talking about it at Thanksgiving. They're talking about it at the baseball games. They're talking about it everywhere, about how the tax-free income from these properties, about how they did this with Roth IRA, and you're going to have that. That's going to be all yours one day. And then you get it and you realize, one, there's different rules when things are passed on, okay, than when you own them. So that's one thing nobody's talking about. The second part of this, especially when it relates to an IRA, it's a lot more red tape than it is for other asset types. And this is why it's so important to talk about assets that belong in a family bank. There are great assets for you, for your income, for while you're here, then fine. We're not saying you don't do for you, okay, and what makes best for you. But if you are designing and building a family bank, then there are particular assets, structures, and setups that are not conducive.
There's so many layers here.
This could be a 4-part series for like leverage for assets, just for a family bank alone.
Absolutely. Because I got to say it, because I run into this so often. I'll get calls from people who, they hear about becoming self-directed, controlling their retirement dollars. And this is the standard call. My mom left me this IRA. Can I self-direct it? Can I take this IRA that my mom left me and put it in a position so that that IRA can, she did something great for me. She left me this vehicle that has X amount of dollars in it. And now I just want to be able to compound it. I wanted to make it a part of the machine.
I want to give it a makeover, remodel what I was inherited, make it better. Yeah.
Not realizing inherited, I'll call it assets, have their own rules. And you cannot change those rules. In a lot of cases, an inherited IRA, you have a certain block of time to be able to use those funds. And the government wants their taxes.
Well, that's the point, though. We also did the history of retirement accounts as it relates to the characters. Yeah, side quest again. As it relates to the characters in The Wizard of Oz and how they're rolled out. And if you really would like to be entertained, please check that out. This is why it's important, though, because you need to know why these particular assets were introduced and how, like who is benefiting from these. These weren't just like, we came up with this great idea that would help people. That is not how any of this was rolled out, right? So understanding why these vehicles exist in the first place really helps understand why they function in the way that they do and why these rules are in place. So it's not just that the government was trying to do something that was horrid to people, right?
Right.
I mean, this is capitalism at its best for sure. I mean, it's going to protect itself, but the ways that we can leverage it still means that as long as we understand these rules, then we're not going to be victims to the consequences of not knowing this information. That's really what this comes down to. Even if it's not you are going to be the victim, it's you thought you built this bank and then now all of a sudden it has to be liquidated, right?
Have no choice.
Now all of a sudden, not only have you passed on an asset to people, but imagine you passing on an asset that is going to be taxed. This means that it could push your heirs into another tax bracket because this asset now has to be taxed. It's now taxed at a higher rate because of the tax bracket that they're already in. I mean, to your point, there are a ton of layers to this, and we definitely need to talk about it. But if you aren't aware, it's at least important that we introduce these facts inside of this stream because it really is important to consider when you're building and designing for a family bank.
That's it. So to kind of pull it back, when we're talking about that asset selection, it's I think Nathan's comment. Yeah, there we go. So when we're talking about that asset selection, we just want to make sure that when you're in a position to be able to decide and choose what those assets are going to be, security is important. Whether or not the money or the vehicle can build and generate compound interest is important. Passive. Why is passive such a big deal? Well, passive determines whether or not this asset that you've added to this family bank structure will be able to sustain beyond you. Because just because you love real estate doesn't mean your great grandkids care as to whether or not your great grandkids want to deal with tenants, toilets, and trash.
Right.
That may be a you thing. It may not be a them thing. So understanding whether this vehicle is an active participant or passive is truly important. Whether it's leverageable, again, it's all about that tax-free income. Transferable, can you transition it to generations to come, and what does that impact look like? And tax advantage. And that was that conversation we were just having as it relates to UBIT. Understanding, even though the vehicle that you have is an inheritable vehicle, is it tax advantage? Or are you placing a burden? Meaning, if you're not compounding smart, or if it's not inflation proof, what you may just be doing is slowing the loss. It's not that this is a vehicle that's going to sustain generations to come. What you may be doing is putting these assets in a position to where you're just slowing the amount of time it's going to take before it all gets liquidated. So as it relates to what are those assets, this is not a one-size-fits-all process. But it's just simply understanding what are those vehicles available to you and how they work. Meaning, whether it's land, REITs, subject tos, rental properties, or businesses. I got 4 Dairy Queens and a Wingstop. Is it a secure compound interest account? Is it a properly designed pension plan. Self-directed 401k or 401k that you inherited from a company that you used to work for because your parent is no longer with us. Is it an annuity? And are those vehicles, are those assets capable of building compound interest over time? How secure are they? Are they truly passive? Or does it require action from those individuals that have it? Is it leverageable? Can you move it to someone else? And I think there's arguments to be made on some of these areas where I show depends, because a rental property, is it secure? Well, I think it depends on where that rental property is and who's in it. And as the tenants change, what used to be a very dependable property for you may all of a sudden turn into a nightmare. So it truly depends. And is it passive? Well, some might argue I make mailbox money off my rental property, so of course it's passive. But what was required to get it there? And what is required to maintain it and to keep it there? What actions are required from you? So in some cases, or in most cases, it is not, it is a perceived passive mailbox money generated asset, but in truth, it is not. Annuities. I have a lot of people who, well, to your point around finfluences, sweetheart, annuities are a thing. Annuities are a great thing. There are some great annuities out there, but how they are being, I'll call it communicated, gives you the impression that, hey, this is a leverageable vehicle. And in most cases, they are not. Why? Because annuities have what's called surrender periods. Annuities have what's called surrender charges if you try to access those funds prior to. Now, you can structure or you can get an annuity that offers a free look, or not a free look, a free withdrawal period, or an immediate income annuity. So there are some different annuities out there, but from a blanket perspective, not all annuities are leverageable. So again, understanding the asset you have and how it's impacted, or how those who are receiving it are impacted by it, is important. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. This isn't everything. Meaning, if we're talking about, if we're talking about what that vehicle looks like and what that machine looks like that you're able to build and produce, it is as simple as how these vehicles work together. Meaning, if I create the cash flow and I understand where my leverage is located, and I put those leverageable dollars into a vehicle that's producing income, ideally we want a compounded, secure, passive, leverageable, and transferable vehicle that all works together. But guess what? Maybe you're just getting started. And maybe it doesn't have all of the pieces necessary. So maybe you have this portion of the machine working in this fashion, and you have another portion of the machine working in another fashion. But the objective, the goal, the point, the purpose is to be able to put all of those vehicles together so that they can work as one, so that there's less work for your, I'll call it, recipients of these vehicles to be able to do. And again, this is very simple. This is a child's toy, but the idea is still the same. When we have these pieces of this puzzle all working together, it produces its own machine. And notice, I am manually pushing it. Maybe it requires some type of active effort or support from you and your team and your family and those who, that circle of trust of individuals who are all in the boat together. But the goal is to be able to take this vehicle and it evolve. And again, not everyone is the same. It evolves into a machine that, you know what, as inflation adjusts, as the vehicle grows, and as the people within the machine start to understand how it works, maybe the machine evolves. What started out as something simple maybe becomes quite complicated, because now we involve the trust, and maybe there's prenups, and maybe there's less real estate involved, but more cash value life insurance based products. And so as people are born and as the assets get added to this process, this vehicle shifts and it changes, and that's okay. But the key piece is, where do you start? It first starts with that cash flow, understanding where your leverage is located, and again, pay yourself first, starting today. It all is rooted in, because if you haven't noticed, and Nathan, I know you did, if you haven't noticed, everything that we're talking about is just simply the wealth equation. At the end of the day, that's all your machine is. It is the pieces of this puzzle working together with the individuals around your circle of trust, and how those pieces go together may look different to you as it does, maybe may look different for your family compared to the family across the street. If that makes sense. So
Right. And you
go ahead.
and you remove one of those gears out of either one of those, and that's kind of the point of all of this, is whether those gears are assets that connect and feed each other and feed and build the machine, right? They're the gear. Assets are not the fuel. We talked about what the fuel was already. If you are a gear, right?
Right. Your time, your age, your health. Right.
Right. And you remove one of those gears out, the whole thing falls apart. It doesn't work the same. If we think about it that way, we're not just pulling our weight, right? We're not just contributing towards the machine. We understand that we have a function in order for this to truly be something completely different than just an outcome.
Right.
Right? It's not a destination, it's a journey. And it's a journey that we are passing the baton along the way. We are not getting to the finish line. There is no finish line in this fluid movement, right? The point is to keep it fluid and moving. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
And so as we transition from, hey, what is the asset type and whether or not it's secure, we talk a lot about whether or not it's passive. Well, what does that mean? Meaning, when these assets are received by the individuals that are involved in this bank, is it active or is the growth passive? Which? And if time is required in order to achieve the goal, 9 times out of 10, it requires action. It requires some effort from the people around you. And again, if we're talking about transitioning this asset for generations to come, what tends to happen is we build entitlement. And if we don't have the proper education, if we don't have the proper culture as it relates to this family bank, the time required, that effort becomes less. And so what ends up happening, the impact on the growth of that asset as it relates to whether your time is required or not, can impact the ability to sustain and grow this vehicle over time. Stress level. Again, is this truly passive? Well, if it is, the stress level involved around understanding how this asset works, or what is involved or what is required of you to be able to continue the growth of this asset should be fairly low. Can the family maintain this asset? Well, if we're talking about an active asset, 9 times out of 10, again, as the generations progress, the entitlement grows and the ability to be able to sustain whatever that growth is becomes highly unlikely. Versus if we're talking about a vehicle that the only thing required of me is to make sure I'm feeding the machine. And we feed the machine with income. We feed the machine with time, whatever that feeding is. But the result, the end result, what comes out of the end of that machine is the tax-free passive income that I use to now go find and develop and create my passion. Then it becomes easy. And again, tax efficiency. While this varies from asset to asset, the key is this vehicle aligned and properly structured such that the tax impact is low? And again, ultimately, can I pass this on? The ability to be able to move this through generations. Again, we talk about the next 500 years. Often, when we're talking about assets that require activity, require support, what ends up happening is those rental properties that you worked so hard to be able to leave for the next generations, the minute you're not here, the minute you're not here to fix that toilet or kick that tenant out, those properties get liquidated. And that cash becomes your surviving asset. And if the right structure isn't in place to put that cash to work, how many generations do you think it will take before that cash is no longer here? And again, so if the goal was family bank, if the goal was generational wealth, being conscious of how these assets are or the required action with these assets, what's required of you as the individual, what's required of the the family that's the family of trust, that family circle that's maintaining this once you're no longer here, the action required from them is important to understand because that will dictate whether or not this asset will be able to sustain itself. So again, as we talk about what assets are at play, we have to remember that not all assets are designed to feed the machine. Sometimes the asset is based on or placed in a position to generate and build the leverage, meaning it's about appreciation over time, or it's about contributing to this asset and building that wealth over time. And then it's the time piece that will allow us to then leverage and use it as income. So the family question is the properties that you're placing in position or putting into this family bank, are they headaches or are they passive income generating vehicles that will allow your legacy to be able to sustain itself? That business that's at play. Only 30% of businesses that are passed down last beyond the second generation. Why?
That is so sad.
Why is that though? It's because of that structure. It's less about the business. It's not the business fault. It's the people who are inheriting the blood, sweat, and tears of the individual that left it from them. Do they fully understand what they have in their hand? Or did we put the right pieces in place so that when I am no longer here working that kitchen from sun up to sundown because this is my legacy, I have the right structure in place such that it becomes more of a passive vehicle?
Right. Well, think about this. For some people, this is a restaurant, right?
That's it.
And
yeah.
who's gonna manage this? Who understands what's required in order to keep the quality the same, of the quality of food the same, right? Some of this is just not possible for somebody else to take over. One of those might be a cleaning business or a carpet cleaning business, or maybe it's something like that, where this person, they understood this business type, whether they were actively working it or not. This may be something where they could have just stepped in and been in a leadership position or CEO or whatnot. Not everybody has a skill. And if it requires you to have this skill, it could implode from the inside out just simply because you lacked skill. And you didn't know what you didn't know. So you didn't even understand that you were lacking that skill in order to understand that's what the missing piece was. But in your mind, you had created the business, you had cultivated and grown this business, nurtured this business and this clientele, knowing that this was going to be part of your legacy. And this is a big mistake a lot of people make. It would be better to sell this business and put this money in a place that will generate true passive income for you.
That's the part.
Yeah.
Using the revenue of that kitchen that you work so hard for to then feed the secure compound interest accounts that build over time for those little ones that are coming along. And then by the time they're in a position to be able to understand and receive what the benefits are, you've got the trust in place that is just simply designed to be able to produce that income based off a certain criteria. Again, prenups. You have to have a certain education, got to have a degree. Like you have to have gone to school and trained in this area so that you can, before you start to receive whatever the benefits are. It's that kind of structure that allows that legacy to then live on versus I passed off this kitchen to you.
Right. This happens in self-storage. So some of these like unsexy businesses,
right,
laundromats, self-storage, where you already have a management team in place. You have somebody who you think like, oh, all they have to do is show up to help make decisions or be consulted on occasion or informed on occasion, right? So you think that you have this structure, this strategy in place to protect it so that it will continue to thrive. However, if they're in a decision-making position and they can then say, you know, this management is costing too much, I could probably make more if I just managed it myself.
Right.
Well, there it is. Welcome to This Ain't That. Welcome to How to Destroy a Family Bank. This is all far too common, right? There is a way to protect it. There is a way to set up some structure so that there are guidelines around it, that somebody cannot come in and make an uninformed decision or mistake. There are a lot of ways to place some sort of framework or bumpers around this, but that's a lot more red tape than just structuring properly from the inside or from the start.
Right.
this is why the conversation on isn't about assets. It's not about diversifying your portfolio.
Where you should put your money. No.
It's not about that. It's about really taking a look at the landscape of who is in your bank, who has access to the vault, who is going to be the person at the front, who is going to understand how to count the money, who is going to be the person. And if you don't have those people, then now's the time to start educating, and now's the time to start reeling them in.
And understanding how the assets are structured. Are
Right.
the assets structured to be able to do what it is you're wanting to do? Or are you just setting your those who inherited up for failure?
Yeah, and that's really it. That could be a whole nother stream all on its own, just watching people deal with that process, right? The important part is that you are structuring for your family.
That's right.
You're structuring for your family and your family's future, not what you think is best for them, but what will be successful in the future. That's more important than an assumption, unless you're willing to educate and bring them in and you have proof that all of that has support, right? But this is the part of the conversation around the decisions for a family. It is not okay to hand people large sums of money and say they're going to have a better future, and then watch it dwindle away. So now your grandkids, your great grandkids, everything you thought was going to happen didn't happen, simply because you didn't have some of these pieces in place. And some of that is in Pillar 4 in
Right,
protection.
right.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. Yeah. But I really appreciate anyone who's tuning in here, because I know sometimes it's like a lot of information to get. And so if you're here and you're learning and you're trying to grasp it all and map this out for yourself, I think this is where some of those Saturday sessions that we used to do, we could bring those back so that we can all get on a call together on Saturday as a community and start to discuss, what does that look like for you? What does it look like for your family? What structure have you seen, so that you can start to hear it from different people? Wow, I never thought about that, or that actually makes more sense, right? Versus it just being us. We would be here 10 hours a day if we were to go down every rabbit hole, right? And every possibility of options or things to look out for. So sometimes we have to be a lot more vague than we want to be.
Right. Right.
Imagine that. If we would be here longer. What? These people could talk. All right, here we go.
And so as we kind of focus on like what is that family, it is which assets will truly serve your family. Because again, the last piece of this, we talked about properties, we talked about buying businesses, but some of us are just inheriting or leaving cash. And it's understanding that, and this is a sobering statistic for me, inheriting liquidated assets, so inheriting the cash, typically disappears in 19 months. That's frightening. And so what does that mean? What does that say? Like, what do you do different? Well, it's understanding, well, how are these vehicles structured and where do you put them? And so the ideal growth rate, so as we talk about what those assets are and how they're performing, is first step is we want to make sure we're able to outpace inflation. So it's understanding that, you know what, that reminds me of that lady with the $180,000 sitting under her bed. Even if it was in a high yield savings account, it still wouldn't outperform inflation. Well, a few years ago it would have been, but now it would not. But the bottom line is she felt strongly that she was doing the right thing by her family, versus placing that dollar amount into a secure vehicle that I'm not looking to hit home runs. This is about consistent base hits. So what you're looking for is that slow, steady, and secure growth of an asset to be able to simply build upon what it is you're currently putting away. Because the last thing we want is risk. And so 9 times out of 10, if you're talking about vehicles that grow at a rate of, I'll call it 15 to 22, 27%, 9 times out of 10, that involves risk. That's your crypto, that's your market, again, so the goal is, where can I place those dollars to provide me with slow, steady, and secure growth? Emphasis on security. I want to make sure that the money that I contribute into this vehicle can't be lost due to a change in presidents, due to some billionaire flying a rocket to a moon. And like, I want to make sure that the vehicle that I put in place or the money that I have generating wealth over time is in a position to where it cannot be impacted by a change in leadership. And so that perfect family bank asset has to be self-sustaining. It has to be able to support itself. And again, that's your money making money, and your money that makes its money continues to make its own money. So it's building compound interest, self-sustaining. And again, I talk heavily about protection. At my age, I don't have time for market loss. So even if the vehicle that I'm placing my money in isn't giving me 42% return on my growth, I have consistent, uninterrupted compound interest that cannot be lost due to market risk. That to me is more important. Why? Because it allows me to build, again, if we were to look at the wealth versus investment equation, it allows me to build consistent exponential growth, which starts out slower, but over time gives me the results that I'm looking for. And am I able to pass it on? Am I passing on just simply the cash, or is it an asset, or is it a vehicle that continues to generate and build wealth over time? That's the key. And so what are those, when we talk about, again, family banks, and family is being redefined as your circle of trust. So as we talk about family banks, what are those true banking systems that exist today? Like, what are they? A home equity line of credit cannot be passed down from me to my heirs. So what are those true vehicles that can be used as a banking system? Well, that's what we're talking about, secure compound interest accounts. And notice, I said secure compound interest accounts. That's an umbrella. There are many things that fit inside that umbrella. There's properly designed cash value life insurance policies. Yes, a whole life policy can be used as a banking system. Notice, can be used as a banking system. Is it efficient? There's a lot of variables here, but the moral of the story is it can. And then there's true family banking systems, meaning we have accounts linked and people in charge of and how income is distributed. It absolutely does exist. So when we're talking about specialized banking instruments, it absolutely can be a properly designed cash value life insurance based product, but could also be a true banking system, meaning bank accounts linked. It absolutely can be that. But it's all rooted in my favorite, and that is the wealth equation. And so I just wanted to take a moment to just kind of talk through or reintroduce what I mean when I say the wealth equation. There is a mathematical equation that allows us, that can assist you in generating wealth. What you're looking for is an asset that functions in this space, meaning it's an asset that allows you to pay yourself first. Can I immediately put money in it today? Today being that second variable that allows your money to start working for you. And let's be clear, each one of these variables have their own millionaires, meaning if you focused only on paying yourself first, what do I mean? I'm talking about those individuals who focus on cash, meaning cash is king. This is that lady who had $180,000 sitting under her bed. Is it possible to amass enough money under her bed to be able to sustain a generation or two? It's possible, but is it realistic? Will it produce long-term results? Probably not. So again, I go back to, it starts with pay yourself first. When? Today, immediately. Who are the today people? What do the today people look like? The today people are those who focused on being debt-free. So they're focused on making sure that, hey, I don't believe in credit cards. I don't believe in lines of credit. I want to make sure that I pay off all of my assets. Is it possible to generate wealth off being cash heavy and debt free? Is it possible? It's possible. But is it realistic? Is it sustainable? Is the question. And then you have to be able to put your money somewhere secure. And then all I'm saying there is, I make sure that the money that my money makes more money, and it can't be lost due to market risk. And so those are the bank on yourself people. Those are absolutely the properly designed cash value life insurance policies that when I put my money into this vehicle, it's secure enough to the point where I can't lose the money that I've made. But then it also has to compound, meaning your money, Your money has to make its own money. That it's about compound interest. These are your risk-based assets. These are your stock market or your mutual funds, your properly structured pension plans. It's your money making money and that money making more money. And then the last piece is putting your money in a position to where it can exponentially grow. That's the leverage of OPM, other people's money. What do I mean? Those are your real estate investors. That's buying land, gold, silver. Those are those appreciable assets that you can also leverage over time and get more money compounding for you. So when you put all of these pieces together, again, pay yourself first, starting today, somewhere secure, compound your money, then exponentially grow it. When you put all of these factors together, you're putting your circle of trust, your family bank in a position to where it can sustain itself. The piece that is not in this wealth equation is risk. And I'm not saying risk doesn't exist, but the key is to put your money somewhere where risk is next to zero or can be as close to eliminated as possible. And again, that's not a extensive or long list of areas of opportunity. It's pretty specific, meaning it's a pretty short list of where those areas are located. And you can tell that based off, again, another one of my favorites, which is the risk return pyramid. The pyramid is based on the least amount of risk to the most risk. And so if we would look at these in quarters, this first section is where the security lies. This second level is where the growth occurs. And this top level is where other people's money is leveraged. So when we're talking about where or what those assets are you should be placing your dollars in, when we reference the risk return pyramid, it is based off three sections. It is your money secure? Is that asset growing? And is it growing at a rate that you have control or no control over? And then is it possible to leverage other people's money to be able to produce more? And it's these three areas when you're talking about where you should put your money or what type of assets you should pick up, or if I'm building my family bank or trying to identify what my machine should look like, what you're looking for is a vehicle that can function in all three of these spaces securely. Again, I've got the security of, let's call it a treasury bill or a life insurance based product. I've got the growth of what the stock market can produce. And I've got the leverage of being able to use other people's money to make more money off mine. What are those vehicles you have today? What are those assets you have in play today? Again, as it relates to generating and building your own machine, it is as simple as maybe you don't have all of these pieces today, but it's identifying what are those pieces required so that you can generate the machine necessary so that you can pass it on to the individuals around you. It has to start somewhere. And maybe the pay yourself first is this piece here. It's just simply starting here. Pay yourself first. Understand your cash flow, understand where your leverage is located, and get it put in a position to where you can start your machine. Again, we all have to start somewhere, but the idea is, or the goal is to be able to put your money in a position so that your money can work for you and be able to generate the income that you desire and or need. We are almost done, sweetheart. So last thing I wanted to highlight is just high level. When we compare ideals between just a simply case study around what growth looks like. You've got a family that has $2 million in assets, but there's no coordination system, no financial education. What we've learned or what we've identified is when passing on assets like this with no structure under them, no system in place, what ends up happening is those assets end up being liquidated in less than somewhere around 9 years. And so if we're talking about generational wealth, if we're talking about wealth living far beyond you, we want to make sure we have that system in place. And so you can have a smaller amount. This is based off $2 million. But if you have a smaller amount of somewhere around 1.5, but you've got the right system, the right documentation around that system, the right mentorship in place, the right structure in place to be able to educate those coming after you, well, that results in being able to take that 1.5 million and getting it compounding, and over that next 15 years looking more like 4.2 million to be able to live beyond, or live beyond you. And so as it relates to the impact of an inflation on a system like this, if done correctly, if placed in the proper position, you're able to outperform, outpace what inflation looks like, and allow you to be able to put this asset in a position to be able to work for you. So which outcome would you prefer? And again, this is not a rhetorical question, but I think this is what we are all faced with in our own scale. Meaning, I go back to grandma's house. She did a great job in making sure there is no more mortgage on that home. How is it being leveraged today? How is it being accessed or used today so that we can build a system that can sustain long after she's no longer with us, or the minute she's gone, because it went to probate, so we've got to pay for that. And there's these other pieces to this puzzle that we don't have the right structure and system in place. We end up liquidating grandma's home just to be able to survive. So why do I say this? Well, it's because there is a wealth transfer crisis, and we are in the midst of it. 70% of wealth is lost by the second generation, and 90% is lost by the third. So if you don't want to be caught in this structure, and let's be clear, it's not getting smaller. This gap is only getting larger. So what are those actions you take today to make sure that you are not caught into this piece, or caught in that problem? So moral of the story is, we've covered a lot. We're in the midst of the 7 pillars of a family bank. We've covered cash flow. We've covered leverage. We just talked about asset growth. So the next goal, the next focus is on protection. Because now that we've identified what those assets are, what that structure of that system needs to be, well, let's say you have that system in place. If you don't protect it, how does it sustain itself? How are you able to keep it far beyond you being here or not? So it's about protection. And there's protection for today, meaning is the process or the system that your assets are sitting in, is it structured such that it can't be liquidated based off a renter tripping and falling off some steps or slipping on ice in front of your property and then suing you and coming after everything you've built? So there's protection for today, and then there's protection for the legacy. There's protection so that the generations that come, the entitled generations that come, aren't in a position to where they can liquidate your assets without you having any control over it. So there's protection for today, and then there's also protection for tomorrow, protection for that legacy going forward. And so we'll cover that next week. I think I'm done, sweetheart.
Okay. Well,
I guess other than this.
Oh, that's important.
It is very important. So if, based off the information that we've shared today, if you have assets but don't necessarily understand how these assets fit into your goal, how these assets generate the fuel to be able to produce the machine that you're wanting it to, the easiest thing to do is let's talk about it. Jump on a call. Let's review. And maybe you're already focused on producing that supplemental income, but it's making sure it's it goes back to what's the goal. Are the vehicles that you have in place today focused on your goal? What's the goal? What's the gap? And what do we need to do to close it? And we talk a lot about structure. We talk a lot about properly designed policies being a vehicle, a tool for your family bank. There's a lot of influencers out here talking about whole life policies being used as a family bank. And I'm here to tell you, I'll just use 2025. Over these last 5 months, I have probably reviewed 100 to 150 policies. And of those 100 to 150 whole life policies, I may have run across 1 to 2 that were at least structured efficiently enough to generate positive growth inside of it, break even at a decent time. But the minute you go to use it or leverage it for infinite banking, it blows up the policy. So my point is, if you have a policy that you would like for me to review, the best thing to do is get on a call. Book a call with me. There's no cost to spend time with me to kind of walk through what you have available to you or what actions you should be taking today to just simply free up the cash flow, and simply go to selfdirected.info/calendar and book some time. All right,
There it is. Okay. Well, now you got to race back.
I'll try.
All right, here we go.
So just remember, if you're on fire, stop, drop, and roll. One more time. Say it with me now.
Stop, drop, and roll. Do that. Do it like pro. Do that.
Did I make it?
You made it. Yeah, I think that was sufficient amount of time. Something's going on with my mic stand. It just is like falling on random. So when your whole mic fell off and you had to...
I caught it in mid sentence. I like turned and I heard the crack, and I don't know how I caught it, but I caught it.
It was
never missed a sentence. Like
flawless. Yeah, you were so flawless. I think the only maybe a couple people caught it.
Yep.
Yeah, that was so good. So flawless. Like cat like reflexes. Well, we really appreciate everyone tuning in to this discussion.
It's a lot.
We have had a couple of questions.
Yeah.
One of those and some conversations inside of the chat, which I really appreciated. There was some conversation around strategy,
Yeah.
like being able to, like, what are the assets and how are we more efficiently using these assets or leveraging these assets? Some of those are just because we said all the things we said about real estate doesn't mean that we're against real estate or using your assets. For the majority of people, you say their home
your home is the largest asset that we will ever have.
Right.
For most of us. And again, I go back to grandma. Like grandma paying off her mortgage, like that's a huge feat. It's understanding if the goal is legacy, it's understanding how we can now take this asset that has no mortgage on it, no debt on it, how we can put this asset in play to produce additional income over time.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it becomes a liquidated asset that, again, based off the data, in 19 months, it's gone. It's scary.
gone along with grandma.
Oh my God. It's true.
It's true though. Yeah.
True.
That's sad. Okay. Well, in better spirits, let's talk about the trust structures that people are saying, yeah, next week, let's talk about family trusts and let's move more towards that conversation. And here's the thing. This could be also a 10-part series inside of it. The most important part is that we help people understand that these are all of the components, right? I hope that what you guys will do is bring your questions. What we have done is we have been vetting and researching this for who is out there that can provide not just the support to establish the trust. Here's the number one question that I've been asking. What happens if your person, something happens to them? And now you have to go and untangle all the mess and figure out what is what. What happens then? Who's there for you? Where's that support at? That's the question that I've been asking everyone. There's a lot of people out there that set up trust, that will file the paperwork for you, that will educate you on what it is, where things are, and they love to talk about the structure of the trust. And that's an important thing. But the part that's the most important is that the whole point of the trust, right? The person who will then become the trustee, the beneficiary, or the successor of your trust structure, right? It's not just the trust. It's like they have to understand all of the structure to keep it going as well. What happens to them and who is there to support them? Because if you are not in a position to have put something together that is like a manual or a guidebook, right? An instruction manual, which I guess our channel kind of is the instruction manual for even our grandkids. Maybe YouTube will be around for there. Maybe it'll be a VR room that they go into and they got to put the VR headset and there's grandma and grandpa and we're inside of there That'd be weird.
Explaining to generations why their beard don't connect.
Yeah.
So, and also how to get self.
And they're like, we have an app for that now. All of our beards connect because we have an app for that. There's an AI for what is going on. I do think that it's going to evolve, right? What's required for education tools that are available to us and all of that. But it is more important that we get on top of all of this in how to keep generations educated. And it has to just start with one, has to start with you.
Right.
So if you haven't had a plan and you're here now in pillar 3, by the time we get through pillar 7, I think you are really going to feel a lot more confident having these conversations even. But to my point around family trust, we have and we'll be bringing someone on to the channel to talk more about that, because I feel that the support piece is unique in how they support people and why they do it, the value to every family out there for the service that they have offered, and they have tried to make sure that they could do it at volume and make it affordable. And I just feel like their heart is in the right place in what they're providing, why they're providing it, and it's pretty much checked all my boxes with making sure that we could offer something to our community that made sense for everyone, even though this isn't a cookie cutter type of thing, that there was somebody who could provide that support. So we're going to bring them on so that we can ask them a ton of questions and get to know them a little bit better. Again, we don't receive any compensation. There's no deals that we do with people. We only support or promote the services or types of products that we believe in, that we use, right? So I just want to make that very clear. That's why we haven't brought anybody on yet. And that's not to say that we haven't promoted people that we haven't brought on, right? Because we just believe in what they do, that they have a good, solid skill set or service. So that's I guess a side note, but they are excited to talk about that. So that's good news. So tune in next week for that.
And here's the thing about trust in general. There's so many, you think the assets have layers, trust have so many layers as well. So it's kind of understanding, just because someone gave you a trust or created a trust, or the trust has been created, does that check all of the boxes as it relates to a family bank?
Right. And then there's the advanced conversations.
Exactly.
Which I'm still trying to wrap my head around. But as your family bank evolves, your trust structure has to evolve as well.
Right.
And so having people in your camp that you can trust to then go ask these questions, how should my trust be evolving now that I have these opportunities? The most important part, though, this is the part I really hope that of all of the material that we cover every single week, we used to cover it twice a week. I hope that this is the part that sticks. Our mission, like the one thing we hope we can seed into people, is the confidence to learn for themselves. That is the number one priority over here for us. It is to help you feel like you don't have to just trust out there, that you are not only are you making confident and educated decisions, you are able to understand where opportunities are and are not in your world. That way you understand how it fits inside of your structure, because that's the most important part. We're not there to help you identify those opportunities. And there's not a pocket Donnell. Wouldn't that be cool?
Stay tuned.
Yeah. Little pocket Donnell that you can pull out, and he goes, hey, there's an opportunity. Maybe in the future, be a holographic. Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, there it is. I like that.
Hopefully my hairline is in a better spot.
Yeah, pocket Donnell, his hairline. His digital hairline. What? Yeah. And his beard connects. So there's that. Okay. So we have, I didn't mean that.
It's all good.
It's a pause. Remember? It's just a pause. So if you had to have been there at that January what was it, January 28th last year, live stream. Yeah, it was really,
Jeez.
it was January of last year. Yeah, that one. If you were there, golly. Okay, so let's get to Gabo's question. He says, see if it'll pull up on the right size. He says, since we are talking about leverage and compounding, would you share with us what is going to be Curtis Ray MPI 2.0? He has a webinar tomorrow only for members, I believe. And there were other people in the chat going, what webinar? Or they already knew about it.
Yeah. So,
in the Pace Morby community.
Yep. And the idea behind it is what is so amazing about a properly designed leveraged IUL is you get money working in two places, meaning the dollar amount you've contributed, it's working for you. And then you get a match. Some people call it a relock. Moral of the story, it's a participating loan that gets added as brand new principal into your policy, and you make a spread on that. So I'm making money on my money. I'm making money on someone else's money. Well, as that cash value continues to grow, we ask this question all the time. Now what? What's the goal? The goal is for my money to make its own money. So if I'm making money off my money, I'm making money off my leveraged money, and that means my cash value is continuing to grow. Now what? Well, what about being able to take that cash value and put it to work as well? So the idea behind MPI 2.0 is getting more money working for you, compounding for you faster. So it's what are those opportunities that fit that structure? You remember, pay yourself first. Starting today, somewhere secure, compound your money, you actually exponentially grow it. So is there an opportunity to take that cash value and put it in a system that also accomplishes those goals? Well, that's not a one size fits all, but there are opportunities out there. So the goal for Curtis tomorrow is to identify or share with you where some of those opportunities might be, and to talk a little bit further about it. Now, it's not a one size fits all. It's not for everyone, but here's an opportunity for your money to make more money.
Yeah. And I think that's with a lot of different assets, how you can use it, who could implement a particular strategy. This is, well known. This concept is well known inside the real estate community. Yeah. There's people who say, hey, I'm sticking with this little corner of the world over here. This is all I want to do. I don't want to be involved with any other things. I think once you've really got your teeth into something and you understand it, for some people, they love getting rental properties. I follow a couple of people on Facebook who are landlords. No, for real. And one of them, did you see? The point is, okay.
Rabbit hole.
Well, I'll tell you later. One of those is the people who they evict or they have to evict, and seeing how much damage is done to a property. I don't care what they charge for a security deposit. It doesn't cover that. It does not cover any of that. This last person left a dog in the backyard. Like 4 couches, a whole pile of trash, took all the thermostats. He had to repaint everything. He had to replace doors. And this was a brand new construction that he rented. And it looked, torn up, all the blinds, everything. And you think about a moment like that, and then you go, absolutely not. Immediately no. Okay, here's the part I want to say. Did you see Adam's? I just want to tell you right now. I'm going to tell you guys too. Did you see Adam's recent posts about his rental? Okay, we have this friend. He's a real estate investor in San Diego, and we go out there and we visit with him in his community and talk about self-directed IRAs.
He's got the prettiest dog with these eyelashes.
Oh my gosh, seriously, Adam, we love your dog. He also has these properties in Mission Beach and all over San Diego that he does Airbnb, and some he rents out. He got a new property and he was starting construction on this property. Okay. And it might have been vacant for a couple of weeks or a few weeks. Or I don't know how long it had been vacant for, but he closed on the property and he had started some work on the property, whatever. He goes over to go visit with the construction crew or whatever. And there's people living in it, right? Squatters. When I hear these squatter stories, I'm immediately horrified because how do they have rights to a place they don't even live? They don't live there. They don't have any paperwork, or they don't have any official paperwork. But when I think about the horror people have gone through to get squatters out, sometimes 3 years, and this can destroy somebody who's trying to build a family bank. This is the part of the wealth equation with the risk, right? Whether you're reducing or adding more risk into the equation, we get that sometimes the returns can be higher when the risk but the risk is increased as well. This is the part that as it gets hard, as the economy gets harder, as it gets harder to survive, we are going to see more and more of this problem. Even if it's that somebody qualifies to get in the property, can you sustain can your bank sustain? Can your system maintain if something like this happens to you? If not, then you need a plan. And thank goodness Adam has a plan. Thank goodness Adam's a very smart guy and he's got it all together. But it doesn't take away from the frustration of you've hired a crew, right? You had to pay them. Now you've got all the permits. Some of these have time limits on them, and you've got a time limit for money maybe that you borrowed too, right? I mean, for some people, we're hard money lenders. We have terms and limits on our funds, and if these things happen in these periods of time, it's not our problem,
Right?
I mean, not that we're mean about it. It's just that no different than a bank, the bank doesn't care.
And that's where those systems that you have in place, or those processes that you have in place to safeguard the protection matters. And that's where, like, again, protection for today, protection for the future. Imagine this situation, not with Adam though. Imagine he passed these on to his grandkids, and then they are now seeing this for the first time. Is the structure in place for them to make sure they understand how to handle this situation? And in a lot of cases, it's not.
Man, because I will tell you right now, there's a service called the Squatter Squad. Follow them on Twitter, by the way. Okay. This is tea on tea. Tea is piping hot over here. They literally hire people to go squat over top of the squatters. Like, it's a whole strategy. This is a business that was created just to get rid of squatters because of all the laws and all the other things. So now they have taken it into their own hands to come up with creative solutions. Squatters, hashtag Squatter Squad. Brilliant.
Like Justice League for squatters.
It is. Literally, it's the Justice League for landlords. You call them and they come out and they just harass people on a professional level. Like, they are good at what they do. They're willing to do stuff. Like, when I say they squat over top of the squatters, legit, they move in and they're like, no, we live here now. They're like, no, we live here. They're like, no, look at our lease. We live here now. And they will just do things that will make these people leave, and you just pay them to come and handle your problem. It's kind of dope. It should be a reality TV show. Probably will be soon. Yeah. But
watch it.
Yeah, the point. So Gabo says landlord need renter's insurance on every rental they have. Plus, it's usually super cheap and cover some of those damages that deposits do not cover sometimes. But look what's happening with insurance, right? The fire and the floods, insurance being canceled right before fires and floods. Like, it's crazy to think that insurance companies can do this. But the point is, you're absolutely right. There's probably more things that could be put in place for protection. Yeah, right. In structure, but it doesn't take away from some of the damage that can be done, some of the time that's wasted, time being the most valuable asset that we have, right? And the amount of mental gymnastics and angst that it causes, like the stress levels alone is where we went, we're not into it. Not for us. Just not for us. But the good news is we still need to buy real estate because we have family that's going to need real estate, right? They're going to need
family
property.
bank,
Yeah.
right. So it goes back to that active versus passive and the structure in place to make sure that you have the right inputs for your machine and it's specific to you. It may look different for you.
Yeah. Cabo says Skia over real estate. And I'm going to say it because I know you're thinking it. We never say it's this or that. It could be this and that. For us in particular, it is this and that because we have kids. So they're going to need houses. They're going to need places to live. We have other family members that they're going to need houses. They're going to need places to live. And so sometimes it is that real estate is going to be a part of the equation. It doesn't matter who you are. Everybody's got to have a place to live. So you're either renting from somebody or you're owning.
That's it.
It becomes an asset for you.
And in most cases, that asset is the largest asset we will ever have.
Right.
In most cases. And so, again, structure, protection, all of those pieces make a lot of difference.
Yep. Well, we really appreciate, as I was saying, time is the most valuable asset that we have. And we always are so grateful that you're spending your time here with us. We hear the stories of what you guys have done to tune in on Tuesdays, or for those who are watching the replays, and we value the time that you're spending. We know that this time is important for you to be able to build your dream family bank for your family, and we hope that you find this valuable. If you did, please make sure you like and comment below and let us know and give us some feedback on that. And check out our new channel that has all edited content. If you are into that or you wanted to share something in particular with someone, we have an editing team that is helping us now so we can get that out and be more consistent with that. We put that in the chat. We'll put it in the description below. And I'll try to also remember to put it in a comment after this is over so that it's easy to find and you guys can go and support us over there. We would really appreciate it.
Perfect.
That it?
That's it.
Okay. We like to end with, if you didn't come from a wealthy family,
you can make sure a wealthy family comes from you.
So stay tuned.
Stay protected.
Stay focused.
Stay connected.
I'm Angelique.
And I'm Donnell.
And our goal is to help you
get self-directed.
And to do that, we have a ton of free resources. So don't sleep on those. We'll be back here on Tuesday, 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we were going to talk about the fourth pillar in the family bank, which is protection and legacy planning. We hope to see you then. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you later.
Hey, before you go, we want to remind you that becoming fully self-directed means gaining complete control over your wealth, time, and freedom. It's not just an idea. It's a framework, a mindset, and the power to make informed decisions to secure your future. Being here means you're taking those steps, and we want to thank you for allowing us to guide you. We believe that we grow farther and faster when we grow together. So tune in next time and tell a friend to tell a friend. We've helped thousands of people just like you start their journey to financial freedom. And if they can do it, you can too. And if you're ready to learn more, we got you. Get a head start by grabbing these 2 free books. But how do they get them, Donnell?
Head over to my website where you'll have access to a few things. A ton of free resources, case studies, and over 100 5-star reviews from people just like you. And in 15 minutes, we can explore what's possible for you. So don't wait.
Invest in what you want, when you want.
But first, let us help you get
self-directed.